Keep up with all the election commotion at ibtimes.co.uk.
Sheffield Hallam should be one of the safest seats at this year's general election. With low unemployment and high affluence, this constituency to the southwest of Sheffield should be a banker for the party that has held it since 1997. But things aren't as simple as that in this corner of Yorkshire.
Clegg's appeal to young voters in 2010 helped propel him and the Liberal Democrats into government. But while it was all smiles when he and David Cameron entered Downing Street, things started to turn sour for Clegg and the Lib Dems, culminating in his supposed betrayal of students over tuition fees.
Back in 2010, Nick Clegg was re-elected with a whopping 53% of the vote. But fast forward 5 years and Sheffield Hallam is preparing itself to turn its back on Nick Clegg and the Liberal Democrats and elect its first Labour MP in the seat's history. A recent Lord Ashcroft poll put Labour candidate and local lad Oliver Coppard 2 points ahead of Nick Clegg. He thinks the Deputy Prime Minister is being punished for running a negative campaign and for forgetting about Sheffield Hallam. He now hopes to bust the two-party hegemony that has existed here for 120 years.
Nationally, tries to appear as though he is above the fray nationally, whereas actually locally he's running a fairly negative campaign and sort of aping a lot of what the Tories are doing nationally. And actually locally, people are looking for a local candidate, someone who's going to stand up for this community, stand up for this area, and his campaign of Stop the Labour Party, he's trying to make it all about him. In 2010, he was asking Labour supporters to vote for him on the basis that, let's stop the Tories. So that he's absolutely switched that messaging, and I think people here just don't trust him. I'm not sure there is the same disgruntlement with the Liberal Democrats as there is with Nick Clegg. I think people look at them slightly differently. Certainly locally, people here in particular, if you remember in 2010, felt very supportive and protective and enthused by Nick Clegg and what he was saying at that time. And people have felt personally very let down. I think it's a very personal thing because people felt so connected to him before, and in that sense, I think it is worse here in Sheffield Hallam.
Conservative candidate Ian Walker believes voters are looking for alternatives to the Lib Dems after the party failed to deliver on some of its pledges.
This is not a typical fertile ground for Labour, but they're making some inroads here because, like us, they've recognised that the Liberals are very vulnerable at the moment for all sorts of reasons. And the two polling districts where the students live, the Lib Dem vote completely collapsed and they all voted Green instead. People feel let down. Nick Clegg, he went on TV, and said, well, what's he done for Hallam? He's brought taxes down. But 2 days before, he went on the Andrew Marr show saying what they want to do is put taxes up. It's not authentic. It's no integrity.
Nick Clegg wasn't in Sheffield Hallam, but local campaigners were getting behind their man, even though his name was largely anonymous from their bright orange signs.
In 2010, we didn't run with Nick Clegg signs, so in a sense, that's our stock of signs we've got, and that's what we're using, because we like them signs. 2010 was a unique moment for us, for the Liberal Democrats in particular. The first time we got national exposure to the media, and Nick Clegg in particular is a new face, fresh kid on the block. Unfortunately, within coalition, compromises had to be made, and because of that, some people are clearly not happy. However, there's still a big chunk of people that understand what's happened and are still willing to support Nick and the Liberal Democrats in Sheffield Hallam.
Supporters believe Clegg has not received the credit he deserves for diluting Tory policies and for sticking to his guns over the lower tax threshold and the pupil premium.
Well, since sort of mid-90s really, people have been voting Lib Dem rather than Labour because, 20 years ago they wanted to get the Tories out. And I think quite a lot of them have then became Lib Dem voters and Lib Dem members even. But I think a certain proportion of them were unhappy about the coalition. I think people haven't appreciated what the Lib Dems have achieved in ameliorating some of the hardline Conservative policies.
The surge of supporters that swept Nick Clegg into power is reluctant to return him to Westminster. Local voters do not think he has done enough to earn the support of the constituency.
We're most definitely going to be voting for Oliver Coppard because we feel that within Hallam it's about time there was somebody elected to help the people at the lower end of the economic scale. We're uncertain that Clegg is actually going to do anything about that end of the scale, although he has promises, but he doesn't fulfil promises.
The man hasn't done anything. And Clegg, if we're talking about Clegg, he hasn't really, has he? I don't think, but you might think so.
I think the Liberal Democrats have done very well in this area.
they've seen to a lot of things, you know, regarding transport.
And then there are the students. In 2010, Clegg mania saw young voters turn out in their droves to support the man who promised to scrap tuition fees. But after failing to do so, those voters look set to shun their former champion.
The thing with the Lib Dems is they had a massive demographic vote from students themselves. They got loads of votes from students because of that pledge to get rid of the tuition fees, and we've been stabbed in the back by it. So I think for the Lib Dems, I think it's going to affect them massively when it comes to the general election in a few weeks' time. I think students are going to be put off voting for them, and maybe they'll vote for other parties as a protest against them.
I feel it is a little unfair to use Nick Clegg as like the poster child for who we should hate, but at the same time I do feel that he let basically the student body down when he was the one that we were the ones he was promoting to, especially we were the ones that he was like wanted to vote for him.
I think he's a liar, as said, and I think deep down he was planning to always, if he got into government, he knew he'd have to hike up tuition fees, whether he promised it or not. But you know, there's no faith. It makes people lose faith in politics as a result, especially young people.
Despite being one of Westminster's big beasts, struggling in the polls and tainted by his association with unpopular policies, Nick Clegg faces a fight to regain the constituency inextricably linked with the legacy of the coalition.